I want to say hello to Congressman Andy Ogles joining us from, I'm assuming, Washington, D.C. Congressman, hope you're having a great day. Having you on to talk about a number of different things, I was just regaling the audience with what is in this $1.2 trillion, people are calling it an omnibus, a minibus, whatever you call it. The thing, in my opinion, stinks to high heaven. Now, this was a story yesterday where this thing comes out at like 2:30 in the morning. And then there's all of this pressure to sign this piece of legislation. It's all about government funding under the threat of a government shutdown. So I know that you're on record as saying that clearly you don't like this. Probably you don't like the fact that you're being forced to try to sign this very quickly. You don't get a chance to read the over 1,000 pages that are in this.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the problem is that they drop a piece of legislation, like you said, at 2:30 in the morning. So you wake up and, I get up early, but even then, to read 1,000 pages full of, data and numbers, you have to check and cross check is literally impossible. So, the Freedom Caucus, we've got our teams working together to break it into sections, to comb through it. And when you look, my office in particular, we're one of the ones that are putting out some of these information. So like the Daily Wire had an article yesterday and they're citing the different things, and a lot of the tidbits they cite back to us because, we found them working with the other teams, of course. But I mean, we just went through and are coming out of COVID. Well, this bill funds a research center in China that allows for gain of function research. Did we not learn a lesson?
Are you kidding me? Really?
Exactly. And so for that reason alone, every Republican and every Democrat should be against this. This is an absolute abomination. And then you look back to yesterday, we had 100 migrants, illegals, broke through a barricade, stormed the fence, overwhelmed the National Guard. This bill, it gives more money to import. That means bring more people into this country illegally. I mean, so again, point two, why would you fund that? We just impeached Mayorkas. This bill increases his budget. So what, we're going to impeach the guy and give him a raise? I mean, this is a monstrosity. It's an abomination. And quite frankly, everybody should be offended by it. If you have an ounce of conservatism in your bone, if you love the Republic, you should be offended by this piece of legislation.
It's offensive on a number of different things. First of all, my lawmakers, my senators, my representative, they don't have time to read it. That's number one that I find offensive. Number two is what is in this legislation. I love that, you and your team are looking through this. They're in the Freedom Caucus. I guess part of my question is, and I'm kind of fascinated by this, and I don't know why, but when this legislation comes down, and I was playing some audio from Jesse Waters earlier, and he was talking about some of the more absurd things in this bill. Like, for example, in this legislation, apparently we're being asked to fund or pay for Egyptians to go to college, right? For example, is there within the bill, when you get it, is there justification as to why we need to pay for Egyptians to go to college?
No, of course not. But what's happened? And look, Mike Johnson is a friend of mine. Love the guy. Family man, godly man, pure heart. But he, from the very beginning, he told the Senate, Schumer, and he did this with good intent, right? He said, "I'm not going to shut down the government. I'm not going to do that," right? And so he then that was his only card. Like, that was his strength. That was his leverage in the poker game, if you will. And so Schumer weaponized that against him. So what Schumer has done is he went to the Senate Democrats and said, put whatever you want in here. Mike Johnson has said he's not going to shut down the government. We're going to wait to the last minute. We're going to send it over to him. We're going to cram it down the throats, and we're going to force him to vote for it. And that's what's happened. And if this passes today, what you'll see is they need roughly 100 Republicans to vote for this for it to pass. Is they're struggling to get 100 of the 220 of us to even support it. So it's going to be a Democrat piece of legislation. Overwhelmingly, 2/3 of it will be supported by the Democrats. And so that should tell you in and of itself how bad it is when even moderate Republicans are recoiling from it and saying, look, my district will crucify me if I vote for, somewhere up in the Northeast, there's a nonprofit and they hold transgender proms and they give transitioning kits to children. Look, If you want to transition as an adult, that is your business, not mine. But stay the hell away from our children. But this bill, our government is funding giving that type of stuff to kids in schools. No, 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 thank you.
Yeah, I know there's a piece of part of this legislation that gives, I guess, gender concealing clothing for kids that are trans. And I just, for the life of me, number one, it's up to you to buy your kids clothing. That's number one. But number two, the American people shouldn't obviously pay for these things. But aren't you in like a really bad position? I'm going to ask you about this, and then I'm going to ask you to answer it on the other side. But right now, we live in a society where everything is meme-driven and like holiday headline-driven. And so if the Republicans don't sign this, then you're going to have the media and you're going to have memes, and it's going to be like, oh, the Republicans want to shut down the government and they don't want to fund, whatever it'll be, the Pentagon or our military and these kinds of things that, Republicans do stand for. And if they stood alone, of course we would, as conservatives, want a strong military, a military where they receive the appropriate pay, and same with law enforcement and so forth. But when they put you in this position, you have no choice but to say no to some of this stuff. But then it gives them a talking point as far as, well, the Republicans voted against border security. I can hear Karine Jean-Pierre right now saying, well, the Republicans voted against border security in the omnibus bill, when you and I both know, and people listening right now know, that what you're actually voting against is a raise for Alejandro Mayorkas, who shouldn't even be in his job.
Well, this is one of those situations where you do the right thing for the right reason, even if you may get attacked for it. But look, at the end of the day, I would argue most Tennesseans don't want to fund more illegals coming into the country. They don't want to fund gain-of-function research in China. They don't want to fund the government buying clothes and hosting transgender proms up in Maryland or wherever it was. I mean, these are not things that our constituents, your listeners want. I was elected to go do the right thing, so I'm going to vote no. And I've been a loud voice against it. Again, my office has been one of the ones pumping out all of these data points so other members of Congress at least make an informed decision. But here's the thing, and going back to Mike Johnson and the mistake he made, is like there was another path that we could have put together that would have avoided a shutdown. When he was hearing from Schumer that it was going to be a crap sandwich and all this junk was going to be put in there, we could have gone back and done the laddered CR again, which would have, we're about to have a 2-week recess. And look, I'll argue that, I want to be home with my family for Easter. But if I was Speaker, I'd say, cancel your vacations, cancel your congressional trips. We're going to stay here. We're going to work. We're going to do a laddered CR, and we're going to fight the Senate and get this done for our country and our republic. But instead, we're going to be sent home for 2 weeks. And look, I'll appreciate that time in the district. I've got town halls, I've got events, I'll be with my family, etc. But we have a job to do. And there was another path that was attainable, and we didn't take that path. And that's Mike Johnson's fault, quite frankly. And he's my friend, but I'd say it to him right now if he were sitting right beside me. But now here we are. Like you say, we're in this kind of impossible situation, but I would argue it's not impossible.
Can I ask a question? I'm going to ask you a question that may be uncomfortable for you, but is Mike Johnson, everybody says he's a wonderful guy. He's a Christian man. He's a family man. Is he too nice of a guy for this job?
I was about to say one might argue is he's probably too nice of a guy. Look, Kevin McCarthy, whether you love him, whether you hate him, he kept his word to me. I like Kevin McCarthy. He did a great job. Now, was he perfect? No, but I don't think we would be in this situation if Kevin McCarthy were Speaker, because he would have gone to the Senate. He would have held a stronger hand. He would have said, look, guys, and he may have even blamed the Freedom Caucus. He said, look, they're going to shut down the government, so you're going to have to negotiate with me. He would have let us be kind of the bad cop, right, in the relationship. But Mike Johnson went over there, and he surrendered before the battle began. And here we are with this bill that is, may actually fail today, which means either tonight or tomorrow we'll have to vote on something else, or they'll bring it up for a vote again. But I would argue, and I would tell the Speaker, and we've been communicating with the Speaker this morning, is let's go back to the drawing board. Even if the government had to shut down for 24, 48 hours, let's do a laddered CR. And here's the argument, not to get too technical. One of the reasons the defense folks don't like CRs continuing resolutions is because you can't do what are called quote unquote new starts, which simply means a new contract. So if they need to buy helicopters or tanks or ammunition, they're held up from signing anything new contract wise. But we could specifically authorize that separately. And it's going to have the support of almost most Republicans, including myself, because the world's on fire. Russia, Ukraine, China, Taiwan. I mean, there was just a report saying that China plans or will be ready to invade Taiwan in the next 2 to 3 years. I mean, that's right on the horizon. We've got to at least prepare for that. And so, but that being said, where we're at today was avoidable. It's a mistake, and it'll be interesting to see what happens here in the next couple, 2 or 3 hours.
I got to ask you, Congressman Andy Ogles joining us. So will there be a move to try to remove Mike Johnson as Speaker?
I don't think so. I mean, the timing is not that there's ever a good time to do something that's kind of a nuclear option. I don't think so. I mean, you're going into the election cycle. At that point, in November, we'll have another Speaker election. And I think it's very plausible that someone credible will run against Mike, and whether or not he survives that challenge, I don't know, but we'll see.
I know that you've accomplished a lot in your first term as a congressman. You're part of you're the leader of the Counterterrorism Caucus, and that is you're starting your I guess meetings or hearings today. What's going on with that?
And so I'm the chairman of the Counterterrorism Caucus, and we've been working kind of in an unofficial capacity, but today is actually our official formation from a bylaws perspective. But one of the things that I've been working on is with Qatar and Egypt, and very involved with the situation in Israel. And so what we'll do is we'll be a crossroads. You have the Intel Committee, Armed Services, Homeland Security, and bringing that information to members. So, I met with some of the hostages, the families of the hostages from Israel. We'll be bringing them in. We're working with the ambassador to Egypt to talk about what they've done to stem the flow of goods and arms through the tunnels that go into Egypt. But, there's a lot of information out there. I was in a classified briefing with General Bergman on Qatar yesterday that members need to know so that they have the full picture of the dynamic in that Arabian Peninsula. So as they make decisions and vote on bills, they do it in an informed capacity. And what we'll do is we'll make recommendations on bills, but really it's that, putting together classified briefings for members that want them, giving them the non-classified documents, because there's a lot of information out there, but to distill it down into a clear, concise picture so, again, you can analyze it and make an informed decision. But, it's a very precarious situation in the Middle East right now. You've got the Houthis, Hezbollah, and Hamas, of course, Iran. A lot of moving parts, a lot of coordination. They're trying to start a war with Israel. They're looking for that flashpoint. They're attacking our ships, et cetera. And so, it's an honor that the Speaker made me chairman of the caucus, and, a lot of good work, hard work ahead of us.
All right, Andy Ogles, Congressman Andy Ogles, joining us on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you for joining us, and good luck to you in this fight, man, because it is a fight. And again, I appreciate it.